So Disney did it again. They remade Lilo and Stitch into live action for some reason. Now if you're like me, you probably didn't have high hopes to begin with. After all, Disney's track record isn't exactly stellar. So, is it worth watching? I would say no. A big fat no. Spoilers ahead if you haven't watched the movie yet. To put it simply, the movie had many different problems, but you can trace them back to these 4 major ones. The villain, Nani's character assassination, new and changed characters, budget, and all those points combined into the ending. To know what went wrong, we have to start at the beginning. The movie opens with a scene that tries to mimic the original, but everything's faster and less suspenseful. What used to feel like tense and high-stakes trial now plays like a sci-fi parody courtroom scene. And here, in the first scene, we immediately see the first big problem. The villain. It's immediately clear that there's something missing, and that something is Captain Gantu. In the original, he was towering behind the councilwoman, and was giving off some major villain vibes. But in the remake, he is non-existent. Gantu may not have had ton of screen time in the original, but he served a clear purpose. He was the clear villain from the start. His presence gave in the third act his tension, the chase, the rescue and the desperation of Lilo being taken. So with him gone, they decided to replace him as a villain with Jumba. Yes, the goofy lovable mad scientist with a Russian accent is now the main villain. Jumba wasn't the villain. He was chaotic, yes. A mad scientist to the core, yes. But he wasn't evil. His sudden shift to full-on antagonist feels stupid. He destroys Lilo's home, rips up family photos for no reason, and trashes her parents' bedroom. Making Jumba the villain strips away one of the best arcs in the original, his slow evolution into part of the Ohana. With Gantu gone, there's no balance, no outside threat, and no satisfying redemption for him. He is comically evil. They have casted Zach Galifianakis as Jumba, and it didn't work. He was totally miscasted. He didn't even do the accent. He was just speaking normal in his own voice. Also, he only had one facial expression, looking annoyed all the time. For some reason, Jumba goes out his way to destroy Lilo's parents' room. He didn't have to do that. He was just there to capture Stitch. Whenever he interacts with Stitch, his greatest creation, he's disappointed in him, that Stitch doesn't live up to his evil purpose. He's upset that his monster turned out to be soft. It flattens the character. In the original movie, he was fascinated by Stitch, not afraid of him. He was curious to see what his greatest experiment would do when left unchecked. It wasn't about control, it was about discovery. He wanted to watch his science in action. We could see that Jumba, deep down, he wanted to see Stitch grow. That curiosity, that underlying affection, is what allowed him to eventually become part of the family. Stitch. After escaping the planet, we see Stitch going on a small rampage, which was okay, but the fart joke was unnecessary. I know it's a children's movie, but it was the lowest form of comedy. I would say they made Stitch surprisingly solid. The original voice Chris Sanders returns to voice him, and there are moments where he's funny. He felt like the original Stitch we know. But the movie sadly doesn't seem to know how to build his bond with Lilo and other characters. For some reason, they removed one of the most important subplots, the ugly duckling story. When Stitch gets introduced to the idea of family/Ohana, he begins to change. He starts to think of his own action and consequences they will have for the people he loves. That's why in the original, Stitch makes a choice to leave the family for the sake of Lilo and Nani's happiness. In the remake, he just leaves after seeing Lilo and Nani being happy. Now let's talk about Lilo. Some people have criticized the child actor's performance, but I think she did a great job. Her voice even sounds like the original. That said, they did remove some key parts of their character, like her obsession with Elvis and taking photos of tourists, which made her feel unique. Even though the movie is called Lilo and Stitch, Lilo doesn't really feel like the main character this time. It seems like the writers focused more on Nani this time and changed her character, which brings me to the next point. Nani's character assassination. In the animated movie, Nani was complex, struggling to be responsible guardian, while still being young woman herself. She fights to keep her family together, balances work and childcare, and makes hard decisions every single day for Lilo's sake. She's the one who takes Lilo to the shelter. She's the one who protects Lilo's sense of normalcy, even as the world is falling apart. In the remake, they turn into something who doesn't care. She misses Lilo's hula performance, doesn't care about Ohana, and parts of her story were completely replaced by other characters. For example, a neighbor takes Lilo to get Stitch from the shelter. A social worker spells out every bit that Nani has to do to fix her life. It's like the film didn't trust Nani to carry the emotional burden, even though that was the whole point of the character in the first place. Instead of letting us see her growth through struggle, they sidestep it and hold her hands all the time. And the result? Nani feels less like a sister fighting for her family and more like someone who's just reacting while other people drives the story. Let's talk about something that Nani would never do. Lilo and Nani are arguing in the kitchen, and Nani gets angry and says something that the original Nani would never say. She says that her parents left her behind. Nani isn't that cynical. First of all, her parents didn't leave her, they passed away in the accident. For Nani to say that they were left behind is completely senseless. That's not just bad writing, it's a completely misunderstanding of what Ohana meant in the original. Another out-of-character moment in Nani's story is she completely ignores Lilo. Lilo is showing that Stitch can play music from his mouth, and Nani completely ignores her, only looking at her smartphone. That's something original Nani would never do. No matter how stressed and distracted she was, she always made an effort to engage with Lilo, especially when it comes to little things that made her happy. They removed one of Nani's most important story parts. In the original, after hearing that Lilo wanted a friend, Nani made the decision to take her to the shelter and adopt her dog. But in the remake, the moment is taken away from her and handed to a new character. That brings up to the next major problem. Added and changed characters. Grandma Tutu. In the original, Nani and Lilo are alone. They only have each other. There's no one next door who can help them out. By introducing Grandma Tutu as a neighbor, it unintentionally undercuts Nani's struggle. It adds this emotional safety net that wasn't there before. And it shouldn't be. Nani was supposed to be alone. That isolation is what made her sacrifices hit harder. Every time she failed, it mattered. Every time she tried, it meant something. Grandma Tutu helps them out constantly, and even casually takes Lilo to the shelter and adopts Stitch. That moment was supposed to belong to Nani. A normal neighbor would never do that. In one scene, Tutu literally says to Nani that they are not just neighbors, they are Ohana. The movie literally spells out that Nani and Lilo aren't alone, which goes against the whole principle. Now let's talk about Cobra Bubbles, or rather what's left of him. In the cartoon movie, from the moment we meet him, it's clear that he cares about Lilo. He doesn't smile much, but you can tell he's observant, patient and deeply invested in Lilo's well-being. He knows Lilo is a strange kid, but he also understands that the home situation is complicated. He's not just there to check some boxes and leave, he's watching, listening and actually trying to help them out. He sees Nani struggling and doesn't calm down on her immediately. He gives her chances after chances. The system isn't built to support someone in that position. But in the remake, his character is split into two, and what's left of the Cobra Bubble we once knew might as well be an extra. He talks to Lilo once, barely, and then just disappears into the background. There's no connection, no tension. He doesn't really care what happens to Lilo. He's only here to investigate Stitch. And that missing bond becomes painfully obvious during one of the film's most crucial moments. When Jumba starts tearing through the house. In the original, what does Lilo do? The first thing she does, she grabs her phone and she calls Cobra Bubbles. Even though he's a social worker and a stranger to her family, she trusts him deeply. She believes he will show up. And he does. He earned his right to become part of the family. In the remake, Lilo doesn't even remember that Bubbles exist. There's no call, no plea for help, no trust built up between them. He just shows up later in a suit like, oh hey, I found the alien. At the end, this version of Cobra Bubbles becomes also a part of the family, but it feels like he's more of a babysitter rather than a family member. Pleakly. Pleakly is very toned down in this version. Instead of being an anxious, over-the-top alien, trying to blend in, they gave him this new obsession. He's just super into Earth for some reason. That's his whole thing now. Budget. Let's be honest, the budget cuts are obvious. Characters like Captain Gantu are missing, and Jumba and Pleakly spend most of the movie in the human form. It feels like a clear cost-saving move, but if you don't have the budget to bring the aliens to life properly, why even make the movie? Originally it was supposed to be a Disney Plus movie. And yeah, it shows. The visuals look unfinished, and a lot of choices feel more like cheap workaround rather than real storytelling. Also, the location was weird. It's filmed in Hawaii, but the visuals are just fine, barely. Everything looks washed out and bland. Now let's talk about why we are here. The ending. In the remake we get a beach scene that looks almost identical to the ending of the cartoon movie. But here's the thing, it looks the same, but it doesn't feel the same. In the original, every character had some kind of real bond with Stitch. In this new version, it's mostly just Lilo. She's the only one who truly connects with Stitch. Everyone else feels like they are just showing up because they are supposed to and not because they want to. So when they all come together and argue that Stitch should stay, it doesn't really land. Because it's not earned. It's like the filmmakers wanted that nostalgic payoff but forgot to build the emotional foundation that made it work in the first place. Stitch develops a bond with everyone, not just Lilo. But here it's barely there. Now, what's arguably the worst part of the movie. It's all about sticking together, no one gets left behind. Right? No. I'm not even kidding. Nani doesn't even get to keep custody of Lilo. Instead, Lilo gets placed with Grandma Tutu. The film tries to spin it as empowering. Like, don't leave yourself behind. But by not leaving yourself behind, you leave everyone else behind. Apparently, Ohana means nothing. Nothing here makes sense. They sent her off to California to study marine biology. And then that's the ending, right? No. Nani comes back. But how, you ask? The portal gun. For some reason, the writers gave Nani a portal gun. Why have Nani make a huge choice at the end if it's retconned in the form of a portal gun? It just undermines her decision. What was the point of any of this if she can just pop by every time she wants? At the end of the day, this live-action Lilo and Stitch movie isn't the worst Disney remake. But that's not exactly a compliment. It misses the point of the original, oversimplifies emotional moments, they added characters that didn't need to exist, and have rewritten other characters until they were unrecognizable. If this was your first time meeting Lilo and Stitch, it wouldn't be the worst introduction. But let's be honest, it probably isn't. Just go back and watch the original. Let this one fade into the background. Ohana means family, and you can become part of my family by liking this video. Thank you for watching.